Alright, welcome back. Today we're going to do a video on the presses that we use and why we use them. If you've been into reloading for a while, it's probably not going to be a very informative video for you, but if you're getting into it and you want to know more about the Hornady presses and why we choose to use them, stay tuned. This is the Hornady Progressive. It has 5 spots. You can put forged dies and your powder. This is a single stage. This only has 1 spot. But the good thing about these, it has the lock and load system. So it's got these teeth around here that you can take from this press and put in this press if you want to load on a single stage. The only bad thing about that is when you try to use it, you can't get a full stroke on this. You will have to always readjust your die. And when you put it in here, you can see the press strokes completely out. So I'll show you real quick how these work. This is a spent primer in this case. This is a wet, tumbled, and dried case. You put your first one in here. And what this does is this knocks out your primer and it resizes your brass. When it goes down, you push forward and it seats your primer. Your primer comes from this tube. The next stage will be belling the case mouth. What it does is it opens the case mouth to allow for the bullet to sit in the case rather than on top of the case. When it comes back down, your next stage will be powder. You can see it's a case activated powder drop. And when it comes down, we can see that we have powder in the case. We have a set of lights in here that allows us to see in there. One thing you always want to do when you first start, if you've been haven't done it for a while, always check your charges, double check your charges. We'll start there we go. Now we'll pour this in here. This should be 8 grains, right on the money. So we'll pour this back into the case. Put it back where it was. And from here, we'll put a bullet on top. Try to get it as square as possible. And what this does, this will crimp and seat the bullet at the same time. You can get a secondary crimp and put over here, which some of our die sets are 4 dice, some are 3, and most rifle are just 2. But when it comes down, you stroke again, and you have a seated crimped bullet. And what we're going to do now is check for overall length. This is supposed to be 1.25 inches. So it's 1.265. Well, depending on how much pressure you put on it, it gets close to 1.25 inches. There we go. It was sitting on the groove of the hollow point there. Yep. So that's good enough to go. We will set that in there. Now, if we were reloading multiple at the same time, we would just keep going. We'd go brass, bullet, brass, bullet. And with this, by myself, I can load about 100 rounds in 15 or 20 minutes, taking my time, making sure that my powder charges are correct. I don't weigh every single case, but I do like to weigh every 20 to 50. I'll, weigh a case somewhere between those. I don't like going very long because you don't want something to change and you end up getting like a high powder charge or a low powder charge, and you have to go back through all your rounds and pull them down and reload them. We're on a single stage, which single stage is great to start off on because I started off with this and I used this for a while, and I felt like I was good enough and confident enough in my loading that I went ahead and got a progressive. Now with this, you have to batch load. Well, you don't have to, but it's easier to batch load. Say if you have 100 rounds, what you'll do is you'll do one stage like 100 times, and then you'll change your die. and put in your you'll belt the case mouth and put a primer in. You don't have to do it in that order. You can always, sometimes you can, I will resize, deprime, and then put another primer in with this. This is the arm that seats the primer in the single stage. One thing that really helps with my reloading is my wife is very supportive. She goes and gets my powder, my primers, bullets, brass, even dyes. She knows what to look for. We've been doing this together. We are a team. I do the reloading. She makes sure I have the parts to do it and the components to do it. It's very good to have a supportive second half, better half. So, she'll wet tumble my brass. We used to dry tumble, and we'll go into that in another video. We've now pretty much only wet tumble. It's faster, I believe. You can do more at one time. And I think it's a better finish. And a lot of people argue, and this is not an argument video. I don't care either way. For us, it seems to work best to wet tumble. Another one of the things I don't like about the Hornady presses that I've seen with other presses have is the handle location. I load left-handed. Some of the other presses have they're set up for a handle on either side. The Hornady's not. It's not that big of a deal. It's not a deal breaker for me, but sometimes it might be easier to be over here and work as opposed to having to come back around. It's not that big of a deal. It's apples to oranges for some people. But this is why we chose what we chose. We can get availability of parts. We can go to any of the big box stores, Bass Pro, Cabela's. Here in Ohio, we have Fin Feather Fur. They all carry parts for these. They all carry dyes. They all carry bushings. It's just easy for us to find Hornady around here. There are stores that carry Dillon. They're just not in our area. So when we're working up a load, we will have, I use this sometimes, but for a lot of my larger calibers, and say I get a new bullet, say I got a 223 and I buy some 77 grain bullets and I want to work up a load. Sometimes I just set my dies up to run in here. That way I can do, I'll say if it's 24 grains through 27 grains, I may do 24 grains, 24.2 grains, 24.4, and work my way up to max. And then I'll go out and I'll shoot them. And I'll check for pressure signs, see which one's the most accurate. That way I know which charge to use for the most accuracy and the best repeatability. There's other reasons we like these presses. They're very easy to work on. They're easy to operate. This one has grease fittings on it, so we can keep it smooth and ready to go. This one here, sometimes I put a little oil around it just to make sure that it's working properly, a little oil on the hinges. Nothing wrong with either one of the presses. I'm very happy with Hornady's warranty. I did have an issue once with my overall length. I was loading 9mm, and my overall length was just jumping all over the place. I thought I had an issue with the die. Ended up being the lock bushing. On the inside of these, you can see they have teeth. One of these teeth had broken off. I'm not sure how it happened, about 1/8 of an inch up. So it was allowing this die to move up and down. And it was making my overall length very inconsistent. So once I found that, I called Hornady, and within 2 days they had me a new bushing, and I was back going again. So now, in case that happens, I keep spare parts on hand. That way we don't have to wait for any warranty work. We try to keep other parts around. We keep these rings. We got some other, we keep an extra set of springs. These have O-rings in them, and sometimes those O-rings will wear out. We will replace those O-rings if they get to where it's moving more than we like. And also with these, they have a bolt, so you can lock these down positively. Once you get those good and tight, you can't move these without loosening this bolt up. Another issue I've had with this, it's not that big of an issue, you just got to keep an eye on it. We'll take this out. But I have had this tube work its way out more than once. It'll do that. And when it does that, it doesn't allow the primer feeder to go all the way back and send a new primer in. So we have to pull this back and put that back in place. Just keep an eye on that, because you will load rounds without primers if that happens. Just keep an eye on what you're doing. All right, so if you guys learned anything today, give us a like and a thumbs up. I know this is more of a beginner's reloading video. We're going to have more videos coming more about reloading and more about selection of what we have and why we chose it. So if you want to, go ahead and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.